What is the darkest fan theory you know about? Story 1, Inspector Gadget. We all assume that Penny's uncle is like RoboCop, injured as a police officer and equipped with new cybernetic limbs with cool new gadgets, provided to him by the police department and Chief Quimby, which allows him to fight the supervillain, Dr. Claw. But there's a dark fan theory out there that the Inspector Gadget we're following is really a robot that believes he's the original. The Chief is in on this conspiracy to hide the truth from the public and from his niece. Penny's real uncle was horribly disfigured and left with a permanently low, raspy voice. He's angry that this robot has taken his place and taken his life. So he's vowed to destroy this new Inspector Gadget. Dr. Claw is the original Inspector Gadget. Story 2. In Shrek, Donkey is a survivor victim of Pleasure Island from Pinocchio, where boys are turned into donkeys. Pinocchio's appearance in Shrek confirms the same universe. But since he's still a puppet, hasn't gone to Pleasure Island yet. Donkey keeps his mouth shut about the atrocities there. I think there's actually a big hole in this theory. The kids lost their ability to speak once their donkey transformation was complete, rendering them incapable of telling anyone what was done to them. And as we know, Donkey is quite capable of speech. I love the idea of Donkey having survived such a horrifying experience, only to come out the other side optimistic, compassionate, and strong. But I don't think it quite fits. I think he's just a talking donkey. Like so many other animated animals are simply talking animals. Story 3. In the very dark, Buffy episode, Normal Again, the storyline involves two realities that Buffy is bouncing between. One where magic and vampires exist, and she is a superhero, and one where she is a normal girl who has had a psychotic break. While as a viewer of the show, we want the real world to be the one filled with the characters we have grown to love over the past 6 seasons. The final shot of the episode is Buffy's father consoling her crying mother as they pan back away from the catatonic Buffy, lost in her psychosis. The dark theory, like quite a few others here, is that she isn't a superhero. Magic and vampires aren't real, and that she has just created an elaborate story in her mind that is preferable to the real world. Story 4, In the Incredibles, Edna Mode's iconic line, "No capes," and the anger she shows when someone mentions them might be a PTSD showing. Just put yourself in her shoes. You're the most renowned superhero costume designer, as far as we're told, and you keep seeing the news covering the deaths of superheroes, which were caused by the very capes you added to their costumes. Imagine her going to each of their funerals, probably blaming herself for indirectly and unwillingly, of course, causing her clients premature deaths, especially Stratogale, who, according to actual movie canon, was a teenager when she got sucked into the jet turbine, and yet it was likely that she gave just one more person a cape after all of that. You see, there's a very common theory that Syndrome knew who Edna Mode was, considering his obsession with being a superhero, and Mr. Incredible in particular, who was himself Edna's client. She would be his most logical choice for a suit maker, due to said obsession. And she, being who she was, probably knew that Syndrome would be no hero. Seriously, just look at his suit, and that he'd have to be stopped. So she gave the heroes a little help, indirectly and willingly, by giving Syndrome a cape she knew would probably lead him to his own demise. So in summary, Edna's designs killed many heroes, yet also killed one supervillain, and possibly saved the world. Story 5. In Harry Potter, when Voldemort kills Bertha Jorkins, he doesn't only kill her but possesses the unborn child in her belly. That is why in Goa, when Harry sees him in the graveyard before he is dropped into Wormtail's potion, he is just a bundle, like a misshapen baby. I think in an interview, J.K. Rowling said she doesn't want to disclose what happened to Berta because it was too gruesome. That is why I think this theory sparked. Story 6. The creepypasta from Animal Crossing. The gyros slowly turn you into an animal, hence the crossing. And this is the reason you're the only human on the island. Tom Nook knows about this, but it's powerless to stop it. So he tries to ease you into it with pointless quests. That's not even the creepiest thing about gyroids. Gyroids are based on Haniwa statues made out of terracotta and used as grave markers. Haniwa were hollow and were believed to act as a vessel for the deceased soul. So in Animal Crossing, the town is built on top of a massive burial site, and when you dig up a gyroid, you're actually digging up someone's grave. When you activate the gyroid and make them move, that's the soul of the dead person trapped inside. Story 7. Jason Bourne and James Bond exist in the same universe. 007 is an MI6 project where they take an exceptional volunteer from the SAS or other elite background and augment them into a sort of secret super soldier. They brainwash them to allow them control of the subject, but implant them with false memories of childhood and use actors where necessary, so that the subject doesn't crack from an existential crisis. There are multiple James Bonds, hence the movies, each a replacement. Jason Bourne is the failed subject of an American spy commando program intended to replicate the 007 program. Story 8. This is one of the darkest I know, and one I think is actually intended to be true by the writer. The movie Radio Flyer has Tom Hanks as an adult telling his kids about his abusive childhood. He has a younger brother, and their stepfather is extremely physically and mentally abusive, even more so to the younger brother. He insists the kids call him the king. Eventually, they come up with a plan to turn their Radio Flyer wagon into an airplane to escape. The flashback timeline ends with the two brothers being chased up a mountain by the king. The younger brother takes off in the Radio Flyer and flies off. Tom Hanks tells the kids his brother traveled all around the world. However, there are contradictions to that ending. A local cop that is known but couldn't do anything about the abuse arrests the king and says he'll never be able to hurt anyone again. The mother is weeping. When the older brother is looking at cards, supposedly from the brother's travels, the mother's crying in the background. Also, they have a pet turtle that the younger brother had with him on the Radio Flyer. But you see that same turtle in the present timeline with Tom Hanks. So the dark theory is that the king killed the brother at the top of the mountain. None of the rest of the movie was magical. The craft they built wouldn't be capable of flight. The brother just never comes home? He was like 6. Him flying away doesn't add up, but him dying does. There are a ton of so-and-so dead theories in this thread, but I hope this one stands out. It isn't as simple as the others and actually adds to the movie. I rewatched it after I first heard the theory, and I'm 100% convinced this was the intention of the writer. Also, if you haven't seen it, you really should watch the movie. It is very good and has an outstanding cast. Tom Hanks, Lorraine Bracco, John Hurd, Elijah Wood, Joseph Mazzello, Tim from Jurassic Park, Adam Baldwin. Story 9. The first Hunger Games book is Katniss's true account of her first games. The second book is true, up to the point where the District 13 people turn up to save the day in their flying machines. The third book is complete fiction. There's no one in District 13. There's no revolution. The books are Katniss's fantasy version of events, written as she sits alone in the Victor's Village in District 12 after winning her second Hunger Games by killing PETA. Story 10. There are some disturbing Game of Thrones / ASOIF theories out there. One that comes to mind is Jojen Paste. I don't recall the details, but it essentially claims that the three-eyed raven essentially fed Bran, his companion, Jojen Reed, off-screen. Another is Bolton, which states that Roose Bolton is an immortal who takes the faces of his heirs and has been Lord Bolton for a really long time. Story 11. Pokemon destroyed the world. In the near future, genetics has advanced to the point where designer pets are possible. So people start having miniature elephants and giraffes, alongside dogs and cats. This fad lasts decades, but eventually people tire of the same old. So a company creates artificial pets, genetic creations with combinations of different animals. Designer pets are all the rage. These designer pets are custom engineered, able to be fully digitized and stored in the cloud. And that is where the problem arises. The first few versions of Pocket Monsters are harmless, cute, and cuddly, and no issues arise. Decades later, mutations begin to appear. The genetic resequencing used by the designers used an experimental radiation, and that radiation is now supercharging the pets. They actually begin exploding from the internal power imbalance. Soon enough, the power shift alters the Pokemon's behaviors, changing them from cuddly pets to berserk atom bombs. Over the next few decades, they destroy the world. Humans are on the brink of extinction, with isolated pockets of survivors barely managing to hold on. Story 12. Lily Potter was charmed into loving James Potter by some or all of the Marauders. Lily is described as being a kind, intelligent girl from a Muggle home who befriends young Snape. In 5th year, it is made clear that James has a crush on her, that she does not reciprocate. She calls him a toe rag, addresses him only by his last name, and despises him for being a bully. Soon afterward, he continues to actually abuse her childhood friend, and she stands up to the Marauders. Snape calls her a mudblood, which upset her, allegedly ending their friendship. However, this makes no sense. Snape is himself half-blood. Lily knows this as well as of his poor family in the Muggle world. The typical response to being angry at a friend isn't to begin dating his tormentor, even if you don't want to be friends. The Marauders had already tried to actually kill Snape by putting him in contact with a werewolf. This bullying continued even later into their Hogwarts years. Both James and Sirius were both from pure blood families and had extensive means and a demonstrated willingness to do such things. At no point does anyone, not Sirius, Remus, Dumbledore, Slughorn, or anyone else who personally knew Lily Potter, ever told Harry a story about how his parents fell in love, or a story involving them being in love. The one time we are told a story about them as a couple, it is that the Dursleys couldn't stand him, as James was as arrogant and materialistic as Vernon. Despite their great sacrifice ending Voldemort and the celebration of the boy who lived, no one ever recorded or informed Harry of anything indicating what caused Lily Evans' independent thinker, intelligent and confident witch, and apparently good and kind person, to suddenly begin dating a rich, abusive bully, and apparently cut off all ties to anyone else who had known her. Story 13. The whole magical world of Harry Potter only exists in Harry's mind. Harry is so abused by the Dursleys, he creates an elaborate fantasy world to escape, but he's really still in the cupboard under the stairs. Ash Ketchum was electrocuted by one of Pikachu's electric blasts in the first episode and is in a coma. All his travels and adventures are just a coma dream, and that's why he doesn't age. This is a really common theory that can be applied to just about anything. It's quite hard to disprove that the whole series was just in the mind of someone in a coma, vivid imagination, / etc. While certainly that may technically be a possibility, there's no indication of it in the series. This theory can be interjected into any work of fiction. Star Wars was all just the imaginations of a desert farm boy who looked into the stars. Story 14. The Pixar theory is dark as all hell. In a similar vein, the whole Carl from Up is dying, and Russell is actually a guardian angel that helps him live out his final wish before taking him to heaven is dark. As is the Wall, he killed all the other robots on Earth, which is why he's the only one left. Though, if you want a dark theory that I have, in Gravity Falls, the second time the portal activates kills Suze, Mabel, and Dipper, and leaves Stan alone. And the rest of the series is him hallucinating that everyone has survived and that he got his brother back. Story 15. It wasn't really a fan theory, it was a writer on show theory. One of the writers of The Shield, the guy who went on to create Sons of Anarchy, wanted the last time one saw the Detective Dutch was him going to his average house, pour himself some milk, go into the basement, where he has half a dozen different women in cages or bizarre bondage devices. This was scotched, correctly IMO, by the showrunner and creator, saying that while he could understand there may have been hints Dutch had issues, this extreme ending hadn't been earned. Story 16. I'm surprised this hasn't been posted yet. Disney's animated movie Aladdin takes place in a post-apocalyptic distant future, not the past. It is a cautionary tale of runaway technology and our own hubris. The genie states, "Oi, 10,000 years will give you such a kink in the neck," when he first exits the lamp, but moments later states of Aladdin's clothing that they are so 3rd century, the genie being trapped in the lamp for 10,000 years, but also being familiar with clothing from the 3rd century means it is at least the year 10,300. The world is a desert wasteland because of a long ago global nuclear war perpetrated by our current civilization. This is evidenced by the genie impersonating Jack Nicholson and Rodney Dangerfield. So Aladdin takes place in our reality. Millennia from now, our civilization has advanced to a technological level nearly undreamt of. We have mastered genetic engineering and manipulation. We have mastered nanotechnology and artificial intelligence. We have mastered energy sources and propulsion as well as flight. But our base human failings still lead us to an annihilating nuclear war. Yet fragments of our advanced technology survived. The magic carpet isn't magic, but technology. It is AI and nanotechnology. Iago, the sentient parrot, is the result of genetic manipulation in our quest for better pets. Even the magic performed by Jafar and the genie himself as the results of technology. Jafar must use his staff, and the genie wears the bracelets that bind him to the lamp. When Jafar is tricked into asking to become an all-powerful genie, the bracelets detach from the genie and attach themselves to Jafar. The staff and the bracelets are technology that use quantum mechanics to alter the macro reality around them. The name of the city of Agrabah could be a corruption of Arabia over the millennia since the war. This theory isn't my own, but one I remember reading some years ago. There are plenty of iterations of this theory on the web for your further reading enjoyment. Story 17. Doctor Who drove Vincent van Gogh to taking his life. In the episode Vincent and the Doctor, the date given for the Doctor's arrival in France is just a few weeks before Van Gogh's death. However, after seeing Vincent's mental state and realizing that even his endless optimism can't help, he laments that the artist will be dead in a few months. By bonding with Vincent, showing him the tremendous success that he would never see in his lifetime, and becoming yet another example of people who care about him that won't stick around, the Doctor hastened Van Gogh's mental decline. Story 18. This theory is from the psychedelic kids show In the Night Garden. In the intro sequence, it shows a kid falling asleep before slowly fading to the shot. That's the main bulk of the theory. Iggle Piggle, the show's main character, is alone on a boat in the middle of the ocean. He slowly dozes off as well. But some think that Iggle Piggle is actually an abandoned baby, and when he falls asleep, he is actually slowly dying. Oh, and the night garden bit? That's the afterlife. Then why does he leave at the end of every episode? And what's the purpose of the Ninky Nonk, the Pinky Ponk, Makapaka's obsession with cleaning? What about how we see the Pontapines all the time? But the Waddingers are almost never seen. And don't get me started on Upsy Daisy and her moving bed, which requires an invitation. Oh, and the external vs internal size of the Ninky Nonk and Pinky Ponk? What are they? TARDISes for kids? Is the Doctor involved in this? Story 19. King of the Hill. Bobby is 100% Bill's kid, and if Hank found out, there is a very solid chance that he would kill himself. Hank's claim to fame is his son, his family, his continuing the Hill line, as valid and true Americans challenging his father's cruelty. That is everything that Hank values in his life. Peggy couldn't accept Hank's depression and insecurity and being unable to impregnate her, and saw Bill as an option. He is stupid, desperate, and no one would believe him if he told the story, which he does in numerous episodes and is always dismissed. If Bill thinks he is about to die, he confesses to fathering Bobby repeatedly. Peggy can barely bring herself to admitting she had a one-night stand with a good friend in high school, so it's clear she could never admit to the Bill-Bobby issue. But the way Bobby looks, acts, and behaves lends heavy credence, and Peggy and Bill almost confirm it. Hank Hill has no son. Story 20. I have a bunch of them from old school cartoons. I remember that they were massively popular back in the day on YouTube, since there was no one actually Googling these. They were taken as absolute truth, and for some reason they were also these super edgy and dark theories too. The ones I remember the most were Captain Tsubasa is actually just dreaming his entire football career, and he was actually run over by the truck that the soccer ball saved him from, leaving him with no legs and in a coma. This one was extremely well made, though, I remember. There was even a supposed episode where he wakes up from the hospital telling his mom that he just had this amazing dream. Courage the Cowardly Dog is actually just a hyper-realistic interpretation of how dogs experience reality and how they seem to interpret everything and anyone as a threat to their owners. Hence why Courage is always so paranoid and thinks everyone wants to kill his owners. Rugrats is actually all just happening in Angelica's head, and the rest of the gang are all just in her head. Each of them had their own unique, creepy background story too. I know more, but I guess those fall more under the umbrella of just creepy side stories or lost episodes rather than theories. Story 21, I've heard darker ones, I just don't remember them. So, Phineas and Ferb's mom and dad got in a car wreck with Ferb and Phineas. Ferb and Phineas died. Candace, with schizophrenia, seen them make the creations, but Phineas and Ferb aren't alive, so her mom doesn't understand. Candace is undiagnosed. Not very dark, but just a bit dark, though. Dream/coma/hallucination theories are dumb. There's never any evidence for them. They don't make the work more interesting, and they can be applied to just about anything. Lord of the Rings is just an illusion caused by the ring. The Office is just Michael's dream while he's in a coma. Beauty and the Beast is just a book that Belle read, and she inserted herself as a character. Story 22. Okay, this is a very Indian thing. A Japanese cartoon called Doraemon is very popular here. Premise: Nobita is bad at school, always bullied by friends, and is never good at anything, lives with a robot from the future called Doraemon, who has heaps of gadgets which help solve the problems in Nobita's life. But the theory is, there existed a real boy called Nobita who had no friends. So he made Doraemon up and pretended as if he was real. But then his mental health took too much of a dip and he committed suicide. And this was based on a real story, which is saddening. It's backed in the show by the fact that there is no real explanation behind Doraemon just coming out of nowhere. No one in the town asking about him as such. It broke many time travel rules the show itself set, and no solution was permanent. Nobita keeps being miserable throughout the series. Story 23. Homer Simpson went into a coma as a result of a botched surgery in the fourth season episode, Homer's Triple Bypass, in 1992. All subsequent episodes are hallucinations while he's in a coma, including his successful recovery at the end of the episode. Marge and his friends and family talking to him about their lives, forming the basis of his dreams/episodes while in a coma. This explains why The Simpsons never age, yet technology and culture seems to advance, and why The Simpsons meet so many stars and have so many wacky adventures. The ultimate confirmation would be the series finale, in which Homer is shown peacefully passing away, surrounded by family and friends, who have all aged 30 years, or however many years, have passed since. Story 24. In A Song of Ice and Fire, Euron Greyjoy is far more terrifying than the cheeky F-boy way he is portrayed in the show Game of Thrones. He might be the worst person in the entire series. In the books, he's a raving psychopathic pirate who dabbles in blood magic, drinks a hallucinogenic potion called Shade of the Evening that gives him prophetic powers. He cuts off the tongues of his sailors so they can never tell his secrets, hence the name of his ship, the Silence. It's implied that he has abused his younger brothers when they were both young. It's implied that under his eye patch is an inhuman blood-red eye. Anyways, there's a theory in ASOIAF that he, like Bran, was visited by Bloodraven in his dreams as a child, and it severely messed up his mind. There's too many allusions to crows whenever Euron is around. He talks frequently of, how do we not know we can't fly from a tower window? Which is literally what happened to Bran when he got paralyzed. There's ample reason to believe that he is the anti-Bran of the story. Whereas Bloodraven is trying to train Bran as a force for good, Euron got a taste of these visions and became obsessed with them when he was abandoned. Bloodraven may have aborted the mission when he saw Euron's potential for terrible things, or he was being reckless and created a monster. BR is morally ambiguous in the books and willing to do questionable things to achieve a higher end. So what is Euron's goal? He knows about the existence of the others and is actively trying to bring about the apocalypse so that he can rule over the ashes, not as king, but as a new god. How does he plan to do this? By finding the Horn of Winter to blow down the wall, capturing one of Daenerys Targaryen's dragons, and summoning a kraken in a bizarre ritual that would leave thousands dead.